Hello, so we have come to the last part of this week's lecture on week 1 on foundations of research method. So in this last section, we're going to talk about contributions. What is contribution? If I ask you, what is your contribution to the world? You say, oh, maybe I have, don't know. But if you are doing research, you always need to think about what will my research contribute to the world? That means how can your research add new value, add new understanding, add new prediction to the all kind of problems around the world. Be you are in engineering or natural sciences, or you're in social science or business sciences, you always need to make contributions, because contributions are essentially the holy grail, or the holy grail means like the most important thing that you want to achieve from doing a research. But how do you make a contribution in research? Before you even know that you can make contributions, you can already know by doing a literature review, right? By doing a literature review, it helps you know whether you can make a contribution and what kind of contributions that you can really make to the literature, to a theory, or just in general to the world. But why do you need to do literature review? It's very obvious, right? Literature review means you look at research that others have done and others have published, right? So if you do literature review, the first reason is you don't want to reinvent the wheel, meaning you don't want to redo what people have done. So if a particular research problem, a particular problem has been discussed, research has been answered and published widely for a long time, then why do you want to repeat that? You don't want to do that, right? The second reason for doing a literature review is it helps you frame the problem and position your research better, because again, you are not, or we are not the only person in the world who do the research. Okay? Assuming that you are the first researcher in the world, let's say 1,000 years ago, before there's no profession for a researcher or academia, then you might be the first person and you don't have to worry about framing and positioning your research. But right now we have millions and millions of researchers and millions, maybe hundreds of millions of students doing research. Then you need to know where you are. Where is your research in relation to other people's research? So in order to do that, you need to frame your problem very creatively and very carefully and position it so that you can tell people that you are making a contribution to a particular field. For example, in one of my research on how blockchain will contribute to entrepreneurship. So I need to understand, I need to position that in a way that this could make a contribution to the entrepreneurship literature. I can also position this to contribute to the technology management literature. So it's up to me to position it and how to position it, right? And for example, the study on the role of social networks or social capital and how that will help a CEO or leader to enhance their performance of their organizations. This research has been done for like 50 years. So if you are asking the same question, you're doing the same research, actually you are not really making much contribution. So you need to pay attention. And with the literature review, it helps you identify relevant variables. This is very important, right? The purpose of review is actually to identify what other people have done in terms of what variables have they studied, what methods do they use, what insights or facts that they have generated from the research. So this is one of a paper by Webster and others who have looked at different ways to do literature review. The table one, the first one, is actually the easiest and simplest one. So when, let's say you are interested in studying about TikTokers phenomena as a media entrepreneur, and why some TikTokers are very successful and others are not successful or totally fail, then you can collect some literature about this topic or related topics, and you put those papers in the table. You put what concept they have studied. Is it about, is it about physical attraction? Is it about the content of what the TikTokers say? Is it about the editing? I don't know. So there can be topic choice. So you can identify different concepts of variables and mention the author's name or start with the authors and the concepts. So you can organize across this or that model. But the one that I like more is actually the table 2 and table 3. And table 2 is actually kind of very nice. Like let's say you identify there are 50 papers that are related to media entrepreneurship, of people becoming YouTubers, TikTokers, and Facebookers, and you lay those 50 papers on a table, and for each paper you go across the row, across the column in a row, and you identify what concept or variables that they have studied. And if they have studied that, you give it a tick or a cross. And after you have done that for 50 papers, it gives you with a sense of, it's like like a radar. It gives you where is the things that where a lot of research has been done, and where are the areas where a lot of gaps in the research, like one certain concept that are not well studied, or maybe even if you dig deeper, there are debate about the role of that particular concept or particular variables in terms of predicting some outcomes, right? So table two is actually very well used. Table 3 is another format in which they also look at different kind of unit of analysis, O at the organization, G at the group level, I at individual level, and they look at different concepts. So this is even more, more refined. So there are many creativities that can be used. I don't have room for creativity for doing lit review. So this is one example of an actual literature review. It comes from my own paper that came out of my PhD dissertation, in which I was looking at the study of how small firms can become global or internationalize their business in a relatively short time using an entrepreneurship perspective. So in my literature review, I started with these 3 main perspectives of entrepreneurship: Krishnerian, which is an Austrian economist, and Schumpeterian, which is one of the oldest economists also, and Frank Knight, another economist. So they have different views about opportunity. And I try to portray this into a different theme, different rationales, and driven concept and relevant research. And from then on, I build the second table, still the same paper. I build the second table on literature review by looking at the theory about why firms go global or go international. So there's this Uppsala model, just quick one. For example, they say, it's better to internationalize or globalize in a step-by-step approach to reduce the risk. And as you learn more, you can increase your commitment or involvement. And economic view, which says that you need to calculate everything, rationalize everything, know what are the key cost factors, and you choose the kind of mode of entry or the country. Mode of entry could mean like you use licensing agent or exporting or joint venture or direct investment. So it says that the decision makers will pick the most economically beneficial approach or means to internationalize. So that's what economics views is saying about internationalization. And the network view means like you can internalize your company, your small company, by looking at whether you have connections, you have networks, professional networks, or even personal networks, or family networks in other countries around the globe, and that could be your first point of contact in how you international business. So I look at these 3 perspectives and look at different theme and rationale and what this theory says about the methods of going international, and there's perspective, and also looking at the strengths, weaknesses, and how these 3 perspectives link to the 3 entrepreneurship perspectives that I talked earlier, the Krishnerian, the Knightian, and Schumpeterian. So this is just an example. And then you need to write up your literature review. Where do people normally go wrong is when they do lit review, they just simply summarize prior research or prior work. This is actually not interesting. It also shows that you are not adding something useful. So it's important to add your own voice to the literature that you are reviewing. So basically, if you're able to do this, you look at the material, you add your own voice, you're actually trying to do a synthesis rather than just summarizing or some summaries of prior research. And the key part when you review is to offer your evaluation, your take, how you see that this body of research that people have done. You need to make your evaluation of what they have done. Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a gap? Is there contradiction? Is there some unresolved puzzles? Are there some mysteries? Are there some, what else? And you offer some critique. For example, too much research have done on this part, but not on that part. Too much are using this perspective, but not the other perspective. Or everything is correct, but how do we resolve this problem? So adding that will show your contribution to the research. And also importantly is your literature review should be used to explain the problem, the earlier work, and the theoretical background. So it's very useful. And this is very similar to what I've talked about. So this is some examples of some topics that you could use. So these are some of the topics that you could look at. For example, people interested in the relationship between autonomy and control and how they will influence innovation performance in the public sector, or how you can engage citizens to do electronic participation and how they can create public and private value, or how entrepreneurs use different search strategies and whether different strategies will lead to better firm growth. So these are some of the questions or the topics that one could investigate. So this is just another way to test hypothesis. We're going to look at this more in lecture 4 to 6. So basically, you want some random samples and you measure the variables in your model, you analyze the relationship, you show whether the relationship is supported or not, and then you discuss it. Then whether it's supported or not, and if it's not supported, why? If it's supported, you offer confirmation that this has supported. So that's actually the end of this section on contribution. I think before you leave, I would just want to remind you that you need to submit your group member names for your final project by the latest week 4 or the 7th of February 2023 by email to myself. And because we have 130 students in this class, so a huge class, I think it's ideal that if you have I don't know, 7 to 8 members, and then that means we have around 15, 16 groups in total. And you will prepare poster presentation. You will give you some data set, you analyze them and write them up and print them in a huge piece of paper, and then you stick them in somewhere in the university that we will tell you. Then we will walk there and have a look and ask you some questions as part of knowing how much you know about what you have done for your final project. So that's it. I hope that's useful for this week's lecture, and that's great. And see you later. Bye-bye.